Good morning, everyone. Before we really start, I have a short housekeeping activity to conduct, and that is, of course, as the captain, you always leave the ship as the last. And so we had a wonderful day yesterday and a very good evening, and we found that scarf in the restaurant. So nothing gets lost, right? Robert? It's a family, right? Absolutely. Okay. Dear Professor Vieira de Castro, Rector of the University of Minho, dear Rectors, Vice-Rectors, Presidents, Vice Presidents, dear Vice-Chancellors and Deputy Vice-Chancellors, dear General Assembly representatives and liaison officers, dear students and young researchers, dear colleagues and friends and guests of S Group. After our first productive day, notably the liaison officers meeting yesterday, it is with great satisfaction that I welcome you on behalf of S Group to the Think Tank Academy Conference 2022. You will have noticed that we changed the order of the elements of our annual meeting, and it seems that it worked. So we have a mixed audience here, which we really wanted to achieve at the Think Tank Academy. Today, as announced yesterday, we will hold our event as a hybrid event, having arrived in the post-pandemic era. And so, of course, my greetings go to each and every one of you here in the room. Thank you for coming and attending in person, but also to all those who join us virtually and unfortunately cannot be in this beautiful theater. Dear Rector Vieira de Castro, there are many reasons to congratulate you to being the leader of this excellent higher education institution in two beautiful cities. We are grateful that the presidential and international teams of the University of Minho helped and assist us with your support to organize and conduct this event. It is for many of us the first time to be here in the beautiful city of Guimarães, the gorgeous birthplace of Portugal, and enjoy your hospitality. The thanks of the Executive Committee explicitly goes to all senior executive leaders of S Group member universities who continuously back our efforts to contribute through joint projects, working groups, and the Think Tank Academy to the holistic development of comprehensive internationalization. We can look forward to continue today with sharing professional considerations and multiple perspectives, as well as promising concepts and proven practice with regard to the responsibility of higher education institutions in and for society. We would like to continue our discussions with all of you about what we intend to tackle and achieve in 2023. And we are very happy for additions, suggestions, remarks, criticism, and your perspectives. More than 3 decades after S Group was founded, we can proudly underline our group's collaborative strength and its development into a sustainable format of network collaboration, complementary to younger formats such as the European University Alliances. S Group project workshops, the Think Tank Academy conferences, and annual meetings are always a source of personal joy and progressional inspiration. I wish us all exciting presentations today and fruitful discussions on the challenging topics of our time, notably those which are crucial for higher education institutions, their social mission, and their contribution to science diplomacy. I would like to thank you for attending again S Group's annual meeting, and I have the pleasure now to hand over to my fellow opening speaker and host of the day, Professor Vieira de Castro, Rector of the University of Minho.
Good morning to everyone. Dear President of the Santander Group, Professor Arnim Heinemann, dear representatives of the members of the Santander Group, dear participants, those who are present here and those who follow us from a distance, dear guests. On behalf of the University of Minho, I warmly welcome you to this second Think Tank Academy conference taking place at the annual meeting of the Santander Group. For the University of Minho, it is really a pleasure and an honor to host the conference of our network. This is the third time Minho is welcoming Santander Group in our grounds after we did it in 2006 and 2020. The fact that social innovation is the topic of the conference is of a great significance for us. This university, the University of Minho, was founded in 1974 when Portugal started experiencing strong social, political, and economic changes. In its path to a more developed and balanced society, Portugal profited a lot from what our universities were able to do in terms of their contributions to the formal education of our citizens, to the enlargement of the frontiers of human knowledge, and to fostering economic and social growth through innovation supported by new ideas, processes, and products. University of Minho played, and it is still playing, a very meaningful role in this process. Currently, our community is around 20,000 students, 14% of them coming from foreign countries. We are 1,300 academic faculty and near 400 full-time researchers. We have a clear understanding of our mission: to create, disseminate, and apply knowledge in an academic atmosphere where freedom of thought is a core value. We are oriented towards the construction of a society based on humanistic principles, having knowledge, creativity, and innovation as cornerstones for growth, sustainable development, welfare, and solidarity. Autonomy, diversity, quality, openness, creativity, and ethics are key concepts underlying the way we develop our idea of university. The University of Minho, as I mentioned before, is strongly committed to the social, economic, and cultural development of the region and of the country. To do so, the university fosters actively an effective, rich, and transformative cooperation with a wide range of partners, ensuring the production and co-production of knowledge that can promote higher levels of well-being. As a consequence of this institutional option, the University of Minho has assumed a central role as promoter of innovation, both economic and social. Recently, the European University Association, in a study on the impact of the universities, identified Minho as a European case study, highlighting its model for interaction with society and its role in regional innovation ecosystem. Given its commitment to social and economic development, I am sure that the university and its premises, belonging to the university too, are the right place to think about the future of innovation in search of a more prosperous future for our academic institutions and societies. These are enough reasons for our university to host with joy and responsibility this conference. I am sure that the conference will correspond to your best wishes. Thank you very much for your attention, and it's really a great pleasure to have you here at the University of Minho. Thank you very much.
thank you very much to our host, Rector Vieira de Castro, and his welcoming words. I would now like to ask my colleagues, Philipp Dengel from the Bavarian University Center for China, Adina Fodor from Babeș-Bolyai University in Romania, Cecilia Christensen from Malmö University, and our speaker, Carlos de Sousa Santos, up on stage and take your seats. For the first panel, universities and students as actors of social innovation in higher education. And I have the great pleasure to hand over at the beginning to my dear colleague Cecilia to contextualize the topic for all of us and give us a small introduction in why we did choose this topic. And we also welcome Professor Katri Lillis-Lepik, Associate Professor of Management from Tallinn University, online. So she will enter as a speaker in a minute online. Sissi, please.
Thank you so much, Arnim, and good morning, everyone, both here in this lovely theater and you out online here. Well, yesterday we started out and we had quite vivid discussions, and I would thank Marina Casals here for leading us through a workshop on internationalization of higher education in society. From that workshop, we also came into the, of course, important mission of universities, which is also usually very sort of expressed as the third mission. So we discussed a lot what is actually the third mission entailing. The times that we live in now, with wars, forced migration, some sort of questioning of research and what we stand for, academic freedom, makes it even more important on how university responds to this. And therefore, I think it was very encouraging to have the support from the S Group to say that universities are really the ones that need to stand up for democracy, human rights, academic freedom, and actually everyone's right to education. So the theme for today is very relevant, but we are also very happy to more officially announce that we have a new think tank within S Group, and that is the think tank for social mission of universities. And what else could be better than we just briefly give you a background of what we have been working with now for almost 1 year to get started with this think tank. And I would like to thank the working group that has been, besides me and Arnim, also Adina Fodor, sitting here, and Alexandra Hughes, sitting here, former vice president of S Group, and Sandra Biljan Kuska from the University of Sarajevo, and Johanna in our secretariat. And I think most of you know that you got a survey last year, and there we really wanted to ask you about how you work with equity, diversity, and inclusion at your universities. And this was really fantastic. We had 27 answering this survey. And from that, we actually also could sketch out what this think tank should be all about. Because we came out that collaborative research with impact is important, students as change agents and social responsible graduate and lifelong learners, co-creation in education, research and innovation with our communities, both locally and globally, and higher education institutions dedicated to contribute to sustainable learning society. So by this, I think we're starting to involve everyone in S Group, and therefore I think it's excellent that we today have the theme of social innovation on campus and beyond. So by that, we also invite you through these 2 days to come up to all of us here and maybe enlighten even more how you think about the important mission of universities. So by that, I hope that you feel that S Group is really taking care of issues that are really of great concern at the moment. So I will hand over now to Philipp.
Thank you very much. I can be heard. I can see my colleagues. I'm very happy. When When we were asked to contribute to this year's TT Academy, we were very lucky to have Professor Cai Yuzhuo with us in the think tank for China, who had just recently published an article in the publication Social Innovation in Higher Education. What a coincidence. And of which the invited speaker from our part today was one of the editors. In full awareness of the concept of yuanfen, a Chinese concept talking about fateful coincidence, we felt intrigued and obliged to bring into play this connection. Therefore, the Think Tank for China will not provide a China-specific perspective, but rather make use of the connection. Together with my TT colleague coordinators, Joanna Mrowicz-Dębkowska from the Silesian University for Technology, hi, Joanna, and Professor Yuzhuo Cai, hello. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Professor Katri Liis Leppik. She's currently working as an associate professor of management and is chair of the Cost Action Italian University School of Governance, Law and Society, where she's also the head of the Social Entrepreneur Master Program. Her current research is on social innovation, social enterprises, living labs, and innovation in the public sector. She has extensive experience in the development and management of international networks, projects, organization of large multicultural events, and has worked for public, private, and non-profit sector. As a lecturer and an active and successful entrepreneur herself, she sends her message through mentors for development and finds right networks and impactful solutions. Lifelong learning is one of her interests, and she's constantly in search of new knowledge and experiences. Professor Leppik, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to this conference. We look forward to your perspectives, insights on the role of higher education institutions for social innovations. The floor, virtual or in presence, is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So thank you very much for those kind words. And thank you very much to the hosts and the think tank of China for having me actually here in this great hybrid event. Indeed, you heard already the introduction about the activities that I am involved in, and definitely one of those which is in the background of today's conference is a publication which we managed to publish during the COVID pandemic and addresses social innovation in higher education institutions. So this is indeed part of a wider network and efforts which we have put together in a COST network, which is called Multidisciplinary Innovation for Social Change. And when actually applying for that COST action, then indeed we were thinking about what or how we could be contributing to the social innovation and making change ourselves. And we thought that if we try to also get on board the private sector and then hopefully also social entrepreneurs, as well as address public sector, that would actually make some difference. And therefore the quadruple helix notion is very important for us. And it's also a little bit reflected in that publication, which I definitely encourage all of you to get familiar with. But in the very introduction already, some of the remarks were said why we talk about social change and social innovation in our today's conference, as well as in the academia in general. And well, obviously in the academia, we try to define things and concepts, and we want to always give some idea of what is actually the evidence base behind those different concepts. So just saying, in order to start, that for me, the social innovation indeed means innovative activities which are social in their ends and in their means, and which help mitigate certain social problems in the society. And they hopefully end up with systemic change in certain fields, which they are trying to address and mitigate. So I would like to pose some questions actually today for the discussion afterwards, and they come indeed from the practice as well as research. And as it was already mentioned in the beginning, that indeed we are facing a lot of crises currently. I mean, the recent crisis being the war situations that we live in, the climate crisis, the pandemic. So a lot of those wide-ranging problems in the world. And in the academia, we quite often talk about how do we adapt to those changes and what we could be doing in order to mitigate those changes. But that's one of the ways to look at it. But I would also like to pose the sort of a dilemma here, whether we are more eager or whether we should be driving change rather than trying to adapt to those circumstances which we are facing. So in order to drive change, well, it's not easy, definitely, and especially in academia, which tends to be quite rigid in change, and definitely the changes don't come quickly. However, what we have been trying to do at Tallinn University in Estonia is to put together a social entrepreneurship master's program, which is a project-based program where students need to come up with their own social projects, or actually also social enterprises. And by doing this, we encourage them to definitely develop those projects during the 2 years. And in order to help them, we have also created a social entrepreneurship incubator in order to help not only our students, but also find important ideas globally, which we would be able to incubate and which are more social in their nature, because there are a lot of incubators out there which help technology-focused companies, but where the social mission is not that prevailing. So we have established this sort of an incubator, and we have a lot of interesting companies who have been in that incubator as well as in our program. So one of those being Banned Books, which deals with censorship issues and banned literature in the world, and helping in the field of education people to talk about why books get banned, to talk about censorship and the rights of people to express their own thoughts freely. So another opportunity which we have actually embedded in our program is, in addition to the project-based learning, that students get to test things out themselves, and they are encouraged to go out there and also address the members of the public with various topics and test their entrepreneurial ideas. But another way to do it is through hackathons, again, which are quite well-known formats happening for 24 hours and where people come up with prototypes of certain apps or platforms, but but we have turned that into more of a social hackathon type, where we are helping with the students, people to come up with their social ideas and also hack them in a short period of time to come up with some strategies or action plans to generate change. So in this picture, one of the ones which we organized this summer with our students. So co-creation definitely is one of those keywords in which advances social innovation, and co-creation with those people who are actually involved in finding solutions to certain problems, because people themselves are indeed agents of those changes. And when we talk about academia and the role of universities, then I mean, our beneficiaries are the students, and therefore we have been trying to co-create those events together with the students. So we give the opportunity for the students to actually organize and come up with the topics, as well as actually organizing the events themselves. And that goes to these events, but also they do research around their own studies, and they contribute to the analysis of the curricula, because we would like to know what is actually beneficial for them, and then we make the changes accordingly. So they organize the conference, again, an international event in our cost action, where they were analyzing the opinions of our alumni, and also looking at the ways social entrepreneurship is taught at European universities, because our cost action involves 40 different countries. So it's quite a good broad arena for understanding how these sorts of topics are actually covered on the university level. Another, I think, a relevant discussion and the topic that comes together with social innovation is social impact, and it's quite difficult and controversial topic, and definitely also relevant, because this is how we get measured as universities. We always have the benchmarks, and we are eager to talk about different top rankings according to which we are being measured. And it is relevant for the public sector to understand how and what kind of contribution the universities actually make, as well as relevant for the students in order to understand which university they would like to get enrolled in. But also when we talk about the social enterprises, then we can't neglect the social investors out there who would hopefully eventually actually contribute with their investments to those social projects that we come up with. So I would say that it's quite a difficult and yet another interesting question, at least for me and the research, is that how do we actually measure this impact that we make especially in the field of social sciences and humanities? Because it's often easy to talk about it in the field of technology or engineering. You come up with patents, you have the spin-off companies. It's quite easy to quantitatively measure these sorts of fields, but how do we do it actually in social sciences? So one of the recent attempts that we have been part of is a Europe Horizon program funded project, which looks at innovation capacity building for higher education, and especially the technology and knowledge transfer from universities to business. And in that framework, we are trying to analyze and understand the impact that social sciences could have on the society, I mean, as the universities. And we're not really good at it yet, and we are not really measuring it yet effectively, or we don't have sort of a common understanding of how to do it. So that's one of those topics that we could also be discussing. But I mean, this is just a very preliminary sort of a framework then that I'm just throwing out here some of those ideas that we have had in our network. It's rather easy to identify again the economic impact because we are involved in various projects. We bring in contracts with the private sector, and again the sums of funding are measurable, and we can quite easily count it, as well as how many trainings we organize for the private sector partners, and this is the way how we transfer our knowledge. So it's also the ways of how we commercialize our intellectual property and whether we are able and capable and willing to do so also in the social sciences. And what kind of jobs we currently have at the university for these sorts of knowledge transfer activities. When it comes to the social impact, it gets much more complicated, because one of the ways to look at it is to understand where and how our researchers, lecturers, professors contribute. So what is their involvement in various networks? Again, one of the clear metrics is for the researchers is always the articles and where and to what extent we publish. But then again, when we think about the wider community out there, they don't necessarily tend to read those high quality peer reviewed journals. So what are the other ways? Where are we visible? So in the mainstream media and social media, in various conferences. So what kind of knowledge transfer events are out there? So again, this conference could be counted as one of those events where we try to give our contribution. And so there are definitely also those which combine both economic and social impacts, and there could be those co-publications or some grants which we as university professors apply from the public sector in order to maybe transfer some knowledge to the private sector and vice versa. So these are a couple of ideas out there, and I would very much encourage a discussion around those two dilemmas of how or whether we are proactive as universities or we are adapting and adjusting to change, and whether or how we should be measuring our own impact. So yeah, on that note, I would like to thank you, and I'm open to the discussion and questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Lepik. As I understand, we have a combined discussion after our second intervention. So for the time being, thank you very much. Also for the space for thinking and for giving me some time to come up with good questions. I therefore would like to hand over to my dear colleague, Alina Fodor. And thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It was very interesting to see this presentation and look at the role that universities have, as they are central in their ecosystems, and they are trying to define the concepts around social mission, what that means, understanding the outcomes of social engagement when it comes to researcher in different fields, and how to measure these outcomes beyond the bibliometric systems that we have so far in place for the researchers. Now, what we wanted to do in our think tank for the social mission of universities is look at a complementary view to what the universities are doing and see how engaging students for driving further social entrepreneurship and social innovation can be beneficial both for the universities that train them, not necessarily, or educate them, and also for the society at large, a concept that we have heard much about yesterday in our discussions. So in this respect, I would like to invite our guest. Thank you, Carlos. Please.
Thank you.
Our guest, Carlos de Sousa Santo, who is currently the Resilience Manager and Technical Coordinator of the Human Power Hub Braga Social Innovation Center, funded by Portugal Social Innovation, and who has a very diverse activity in research through his collaboration with the University Institute Ortega y Gasset in Madrid, but also Erasmus projects and trainer for Salto and other institutions when it comes to forming youth that contributes to driving further this social innovation. I won't take longer, but I'm sure you can see Carlos's introduction in the program, and if you have questions about his work, you can further ask. So please, Carlos.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adina. Thank you for the invitation. And start by welcoming you to Portugal and to Guimarães. It's a pleasure to have such distinguished members from the Academy with us today. So I bring a presentation, if you can put it on slides, please. Let me say before the presentation is available that this project of Braga Human Power Hub, it's a project that we developed with the European projects, so it is funded by European funding. And it also involves the MIN University. So MIN University is one of the members of the consortium, Fundação Braga Augusta, that did develop this project and was able to get such a collaboration process on the creation and development of the concept. So between 2015 and 2017, the city of Braga was involved in a URBACT project. It's a European funding scheme that is supporting cities to do the transition between knowledge and practice. And between 2019 and 2021, so we apply for an innovative program in Portugal that is using European funding from RRDF, and it is promoting transition from social innovation in Portugal with 4 mechanisms. One, it's about empower organizations to work with social innovation. A second one that is partnerships for capacity and for social innovation, which was the one that finance our social innovation center. So I'm very lucky because I was in all the process, and I have the opportunity to design the concept that brings to Human Power Hub. So Human Power Hub is the result of a research, a practice, and a collaboration between all the members of the community in the city of Braga. And the Human Power Hub is the integrated action plan that came up from this URBACT network. The name was Boosting Social Innovation. And it gathers really interesting cities that are doing this transition from knowledge to practice, like Milan, Torino, Barcelona, Paris, Strasbourg, among others. So let me go to the question that I'm bringing you today. So people feel a little bit lost in translation today. So it was already mentioned before, we are living very challenging times with the war, with the inflation, with the climate process. So everything, and this is particularly for the young people. So we feel a little bit lost in translation. There are many challenges. There are many anxiety. There is many challenges to go through. So this is something that we feel a little bit lost, a little bit trembling, a little bit like, so what is the reality? Where is the truth? What should I pursue if I want to go for different things? There are many tunnels, and all of us are looking for a light in the middle of these times. The tunnel that we choose in the Human Power Hub is this one that combines 3 processes that we think are crucial in terms of promoting social innovation. Starting by democracy. Democracy is the only model where we can go for social innovation. It's the only way where freedom takes your knowledge to go deep to social innovation. Resilient communities, and in this case, we need to focus on communities of students and communities of students in university that are engaged with knowledge and have dreams to change the world. So how can we bring resilience to university students to make them more focused on what they pursue and what they want to become? And then social innovation as well as a higher innovation. How can we jump from innovation to social innovation and accomplish what is humanity? So this is the tunnel and this is the light that we are looking for. So we are trying to converging social innovation democracy, and social innovation. Our beginning, it was innovation. Some social innovation centers, and this is very especially for Braga, we start with the concept of social economy. Okay, but we decided to not start on social economy and go first to innovation because it's the radical of social innovation. So if you don't understand innovation, it will be really difficult to accomplish social innovation. So we are following the Oslo Manual on Innovation, and what we are trying to understand is to see how innovation comes to the people, how they arrive to the final society. So feasibility, billability, desirability, and sustainability. What I think is here as well in this process, we are a little bit lost in transition. We are too much focused on feasibility. We also are very focused on viability to see how knowledge arrives to the market. But then, is this what people really desire? Or is this innovation what really makes sense to what we need to face the challenges that we want? And how this technology and how this innovation suits with the sustainability of the planet? And how do we manage this innovation in a way that we preserve our planet? So this is also an interesting concept to how can we bring people to innovation. So to make students to be engaged when understanding that innovation is not only feasibility, it's much more than that. And we just not be focused on research, we need to transfer that research to the people to make them arrive to what are the most important. Then, after we understand what innovation is, we are trying to understand, so what could innovation means, social innovation be or means. And for us, social innovation is the higher innovation. Okay? There is many definitions that I can bring to you, since Peter Drucker, since Michael E. Porter, or Felipe Santos, Portuguese Dean of Catholic University. But for me, social innovation is the higher innovation. What does it mean? It means that we need to jump from feasibility to knowledge, and this is the mission of the university. We need to jump from viability to economy, which leaves no one behind, okay? And economy for the people and by the people. We are going from desirability for individuals to real society, and we abandon sustainability to really talk about ecology, about how we connect with the planet. And for me, this is social innovation. It's when we upgrade a lot innovation, and when we see the end of the thing. So basically, this is what we are trying to do. And this is also something that it turns a lot about research. For example, these are concepts from sociology. So we used to see the future as something that was solid, that was good for everybody, that we will go to advance, to get better quality for people living in the planet. Then we have a moment that we are feeling a little bit a kind of liquid future, where we're feeling the future escaping from our hands. And today, we are feeling a little bit this aerated future, that everything is really gas, that it's very disturbed. There is a lot of smoke and we cannot see the future. This is what young people are facing. This is what the students are facing. When they are really investing in going to the university and to dedicate to research, what happens after? When they go to the real world, what real world is expecting us, okay? And today, this is really makes sense, because we are listening to the news, we are seeing what are the conversations between Russia and the rest of the world. We are listening about nuclear again, something that was disappearing quite, and now we have this aerated future again. So this brings mixed feelings to young people and to students and to the population in general. So it's like being with a suit in the middle of the desert, okay? Young people are the most developed students in terms of access to knowledge, in terms of research. We are living in the moment, we have more PhD students that we ever had, but around us, it's a little bit like a desert. So we are really prepared. We have students that are really empowered with knowledge and practice and research, but around us, we see more and more a desert. And this brings mixed feelings for the young people, because we are still asking for more conditions, better housing, more access to work, dignity on work, and things like that. So again, it's like we are lost in transition. So we are in the best moment in terms of knowledge, but at the same time, we are facing a world with very complexity and a lot of challenges in front of us. And this is especially complicated for young people. Young people are the ones that are more affected by the pandemic. Young people are the ones more affected by the situation of the economy, difficulties in access housing and dignity job, and so on and so on. So Again, to this concept of lost in transition, we are a little bit confused about this transition for economy to social economy. What is the best? What are the models? And this we connect again to the university and to the academy. And when we do this dialectic process, we have another. So, but what is the best? Is social economy or is impact economy? And young people feel confused. People in general feel confused. Of course, at university, we are more comfortable because we study these concepts and we know the concepts between this, what it means. But for people, this is a little bit lost in translation. I can give you another example. So, for example, design policy or design thinking or social design policy. Okay, and again, we are a little bit, okay, so which one is the best? And after we are in social design, so it's social design or it is human design. And every day there is a new information coming, new concepts coming, and this is really difficult for people in the real world to absorb. Okay, so this loss in translation is not only because of the reality or because of the economy, it's also because it's difficult to understand so many concepts that are coming from the university. Another question that is very connected with social innovation is this difference between entrepreneurship, the conventional one, focused on profit, and the other one, social entrepreneurship, that is focused on impact. And that was addressed by my previous person that was speaking. And then when we are finally talking about social entrepreneurship, but if it maybe impact economy or impact entrepreneurship is better than social entrepreneurship. So this is things that I'm feeling every day when I'm working with entrepreneurs, when I'm working with people that want to change the world, but this is what they have. It's a little bit pixelized factor, okay? So it's difficult to understand which decisions you should do if you should go for a traditional conventional entrepreneurship process, the way you develop your company, or if you go to a social entrepreneurship process, which you are more focused in impact. And this is really connected to university because we are talking about two models. One that started with Mr. Adams and another one that is being developed now in Stanford by Mr. Potter. So it's really important for us to have these social innovation centers that can support the role of young people on this transition to the reality or looking for the truth. So there is also a baseline that is also challenging young people and challenging university students. So we have the Paris Climate Agreement, which took a lot of time to get an agreement, and now we are seeing a lot of processes about how we implement this, okay? The pandemic was a problem to implement the agreement. Now we have the energetic crisis that are bringing again problems in this. So, for example, Portugal already did shut the factories connected with carbon. They have to open again because we are in energetic crisis. We are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals in the 2030 Agenda in terms of United Nations. We are talking about human rights, the declaration, the 70 years of Human Rights Declaration, and we are talking as well about the changes that the Web 3.0 are bringing. Feel confused? Feel lost in translation? So these are the challenges. These are the real challenges that young people and students have to face. In the truth, we can resume to this. Should we go for profit? Should we go for purpose? And this is the question. So, and this is also the question between innovation and social innovation. And this is also the question about what are the future we are looking for. So I think there is no more business to business or business to consumer or business to public. I think we need to go back to the essence of what we are, humans, and think about this is human to human. Okay, and so this is also connected about how we understand knowledge and how we understand the mission of the universities. We live in the moment, in the world of KPIs, all indicators, all metrics, everything is important. But maybe what we should focus is how can we keep people inspired. And this is really a challenge for you in the universities because you need to inspire university students. And we need to inspire them to have a role in this transformation, in this change. So what are we doing in the Human Power Hub? How can we see the role of young people to do change in universities? So our concept is based on something that you really know. This is the quadruple helix. But once again, it could be some lost in translation on this process, okay? Because some people are still talking about the triple helix, and they are not yet talking about the quadruple helix. And other people already are talking about the quintuple helix and say that the quadruple helix is not the best. Okay, so we are still discussing. So we are still in this process. So what we try to do in the Human Power Hub It was to translate the Quadruple Alice to the operational program of Human Power Hub. So we have Alex, which is the one that you know, knowledge. So this is conhecimento in Portuguese. And here the young people have a role. It's to study, it's to research, it's to develop models, and to understand how they can transfer this knowledge to the real world. We have an approach to corporate men and to businessmen, and this is about social responsibility and how to achieve ESG models, and somehow working with them what we call impact investment. We have another one that is focused on the public, and this is to make better public policy, talking about processes like European cooperation with the European funds, with the European social economy regions, but another, I know I'm a little bit late. And the most important one is to bring citizens to this. So as a practitioner here today, this is where I'm feeling and where I'm talking to you today. So what is the role of citizens in this change? What is the role of citizens in absorb knowledge from the academy? And what are the role of young people? So we see the Quadruple Alice and we see the young people on the middle of it. They are the change makers. They are the people that can make the translation. So thank you for empowering young people and to support them on the role that they need in this world in translation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carl, for your presentation and your food for thought on what universities need to do in order to make life easier for these students as agents of change in society and the role that they can play, helping them find that purpose that you were talking about. Thank you. We are now taking questions, I believe. Thank you.
Of course, we also take comments, remarks, anything with regard to that. Please feel free to engage. Please.
Yes, I think I start breaking the ice here. Thank you for two excellent presentations, and it's from the university perspective and from the societal perspective. And I think in the first presentation here, I think we were really challenged with how we are active in driving societal change and how do we engage young people. Already in 1973, Donald Schoen wrote about the learning society, that we are not living in a stable society. We have to adjust to it, but we also need to drive the change. So I would like to ask questions to both of the speakers here on how you see universities connecting to society, especially since we would like to see that young people continue through university to become equipped to be identifying societal changes, leading societal change, and also, I guess, be able to follow up. What does it really mean? That is the impact version that we can talk about a little later. So really some good example or some directions for us that we do co-create this, because we need to do it together. So I would like to have really some concrete ideas that you would like to put on the wishing list on how we take this further. Who would like to start? I give the floor to you you are on the floor, obviously, here, because we see you in the screen. Yeah. So please, Kathy, please.
Thank you very much. Well, I do see that as the previous speaker also stressed, that the students are in the key possession, and we actually give them the opportunity to identify those problems and topics that they would like to work on. So this is why we have tried to proceed with this sort of a project-based learning, that they are themselves identifying the issues out there which they feel they are capable of a little bit changing or improving, and then we give them the sort of environment to enhance, and we support them with our, well, be it lecturers or mentors to actually implement those activities. So again, reflecting on the previous speakers' comments, that we definitely have chosen this for mission approach, and we are encouraging them to think about definitely also how they are going to sustain their businesses financially, but also how they actually contribute. So I mean, in a longer term, we would hope all the businesses to be contributing to also to social mission and social change, that would become a mainstream way of thinking. But until then, we can help the students go on that journey and help them identify the ways they can make their little contribution.
Okay, I think the first step is to activate this quadruple Alice and innovation in young people, to make young people as well thinking about what I call self-innovation. How can I be a more feasible person? How can I be a more viable person? How can I be a little bit more desirable to society wants me to working for them and bringing the knowledge that I was learning in the university? And how can I do it in a sustainable way? So also activate the innovation mindset on students. I think it's a really big challenge for us. So I'm thinking as an innovation person, as someone that is looking always for more, that I want to have more knowledge, to know more about methods, to be more engaged with the problems that I really want to solve. So this activation of innovation in ourselves, I think, is a challenge that we also need, and this is the role of university students because they have access to it. So they have responsible to be innovator persons, to be self-innovators. And then when we innovate in ourselves, then we can innovate in our organizations, in our institutions, and in the planet. And I think so the next challenge in this quadruple Alex challenge is how can we go to innovation and do innovation in our organizations, and this could be done in the quadruple Alex as well. How can I work better as a public servant? How can I work better as a politician? How can I work better as someone that is in the private sector and that is dealing with purpose and profit and markets and everything that is building products to the people? How can we as individuals also think about what is the role of civil society and organizations like Red Cross and others? And how can we have a better relationship with the planet? This is the elephant, like Jeremy Rifkin is saying multiple times. The idea of resilient communities that Professor Ezio Manzini is talking so much, I think is really crucial. So we need also to bring this innovation to communities and to make social innovation the higher innovation. This is really big challenges, but I think that if we activate innovation in ourselves, it will be much easier to achieve what innovation and social innovation as higher innovation can mean. This is, of course, complex, okay? And we are too much focused on innovation because the innovation we do are services and products. And what the innovation I think we should do is innovation on people. So we can really face and understand what are these tendencies of war that are uprising again, and all of these conflicts between continents. And so we are again in a very discussed language, so words that were a little bit forgotten. Of course, the academia was always telling that careful, we are 2 minutes away from the doomsday clock. So the academy is always telling people that be careful, we are close to the end, but it seems like governments and people doesn't want to know. They are looking for their inner good, their comfort. And this is not possible anymore. So we are really facing challenges, and for young people, they need to be aware of that. So as the university students have people that have the opportunity to reach the higher light of knowledge, they have more responsible to do these changes.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the floor? From the virtual floor?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
I'd like to continue along with your question. At the end of the day, it's nice to have social innovation, but let's take a simple example. Energy. We can have social innovation in terms of restricting sovereignty of energy, but at the end of the day, we have to turn on the light and so on. So there are some social, basic technology innovation as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm always surprised that we opposed the two innovations because they should be complementary to each other. At the end, we have also to have the countable stuff and the numbers and the engineering and technology that follows up the social innovation. Why always opposing that? In multidisciplinary approach, for me, it's an old buzzword, but it should be put forward as well. The social innovations comes because of meeting people with different backgrounds together.
That is a really good question, and this is the why. So I think the total meaning for each university is to rise, to get the greater innovation. But in the way, on this process to achieve higher innovation, we stopped in the way, and we stopped only on innovation. And the innovation was mainly taking to profit. And what we have today is a planet which 5 people are more rich than 90% of the population of our planet. It means something went wrong on this process, okay? Because it's not logical to have 5 people that are more rich than 90% of the planet. So something in the process of innovation, which we stuck in product and services, forget the higher good, the higher innovation. And this is the problematic that we need to afford. So this is the problematic that businessmen need to understand, that higher profits are no longer possible. They need to rise the people. So this question about resistance and resilience are not the same thing. So we want to have resilient communities, but what we are asking is for resistant communities that are facing the question that they need to deal with the higher costs of energy, with the higher costs of production, with the higher costs of living, with the impossible at the moment for young people to get a house and to get a dignity job and all of the things, because the profit is the question on here. So the organizations are taking too much profit instead of bringing the profit to the ground of the people. So I think this is really a discussion that is very complex and it's very connected with economy as well. And this question of starting discussion about social innovation from social economy or starting the discussion from innovation, it's really important to understand what kind of innovation are we looking for, what kind of development are we looking for the planet. But I agree with you.
The problem is, just to make a comment, it's to go back to the very definition of innovation and the triple P, people, planet, profit, is to find the right balance between the 3 poles. Quadruple, it's the same. And we have the problem, innovation is not innovation in the right sense, it's just maximization of profit. While the real innovation is finding the right compromise between the constraints and the objectives in the 3, 4, 5 poles, I think.
I agree with you.
I don't know, maybe, yeah. So you heard the question. I was not aware, but I think rephrasing it a little bit, because initially you did not have a microphone, was the question, is it necessary to differentiate between social innovation and innovation or technical innovation?
So my question was, is it necessary to oppose innovation in terms of technology versus social? And according to me, no, because it is part of the solution. And we cannot disregard the technological, scientific innovation with respect to social innovation, because they have to work together at the end of the day to find a concrete solution.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misinterpreted. I wanted to be sure that Professor Lepik had the chance to hear the question, and thank you for repeating it for me again.
I see it is that, well, the technological innovations cannot be adopted or implemented without social innovation. So I'm definitely not opposing the two, but I'm thinking that quite often the social innovation is left behind. And when we look at well, let's say the last decade in terms of like funding opportunities out there in Europe, at least, then when we talk about innovations and when we look at the grant opportunities or any other investment opportunities, then the term innovation is quite often interpreted in the way of technological innovation. And only recently the social innovation aspect has been brought into those funding schemes as well. So that's one of those ways of looking at how it has been viewed in a broader sense. So there's a lot of support and has been a lot of support for technological innovation, but less so for social innovation. So they should indeed, in my view, also go hand in hand.
Thank you very much. I think we have a very good kickoff for further food of thought, for further discussions in this context. I have to be conscious of time, and therefore I would like to thank our two speakers and our hosts, my wonderful colleagues from the Think Tank for China and the Think Tank for Social Mission of Universities. And actually, I liked also, Carlos, your metaphor of the physical states. So, and the fluidity and then the dispersion into thin air. And I think that the physical states and social states, socioeconomic and sociopolitical states, that these different questions are hovering through, and that also concerns your remark that they are part of one holistic development. I would, as an invitation to transition to the coffee break, say that we are not only lost in translation very often, but also lost in a constant transition through this very dynamic development. And I find this very important that we have this discussion and discourse here in S Group. Thank you all very much. I would like to invite you now to have a short break. We shortened the break since we had so interesting discussions and presentations, and I would like, in order not to let wait our next speakers who will be online with us as well, I would like to invite you to be back in 15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the virtual space.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So welcome back, everyone. Almost everyone. Some are still tickling in. It was good to see that the weather outside is very promising for an afternoon walk and so on. Thanks for coming back to this cozy place. I would like to welcome further colleagues from the Think Tank Coordinators Group to the stage. We have Barbara Claes from the University of Ghent for the Think Tank for Latin America, together with Camilo Villa from the Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. And we have Robert Kotzi from the University of Stellenbosch, representing the Think Tank for Africa. And we are very happy that we can continue with Michael Strange and Leslie van Rooij from Malmö University and from Stellenbosch University, who will join us online. And at this point, I would like to say a very big thank you to our colleagues from the technical support. Everything works really brilliantly so far. Thank you so much. And maybe, Sissy, you would like to, again, contextualize a little bit, and I am happy to hand over to you. You can do this here or there, however you want.
Microphone, or I'm not? No?
You are.
Yeah, I am. I just thought I would share some comments from the coffee break, which I love. You sitting there online, unfortunately, are not part of all the nice discussions after sessions. But to bring you some ideas, I think I asked around a little bit, what did you pick up from this first session? And I think there were two things that really I wanted to share with you. And one was a reflection on keep people inspired. That is really more important than maybe having all these measuring sticks and whatever we use. So that, I think, is something that we should bring forward also to the second session.
And we could use this as a paradox intervention because KPIs normally are the key performance indicators.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that is very nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. And another one that I think was also really good to bring in here is about that we have global challenges, and usually we come up with local solutions in communities, but then we have the challenge again to bring solutions to the global. So this is really a challenging process we are in, and we have to think both locally and globally in those transitions. But I'm really happy that we're now going into the second session here, which will definitely be focusing on social impact and the outreach of universities. And I'm really happy to invite Michael Strange, who is my colleague at Malmö University. He is an associate professor in international relations. But I would also like to say that he's kind of a, forgive me, Michael, but I would say a little bit of an activist you are. Trying, and I think we need activists in academia to bring interdisciplinarity, which you really are doing, because you are bridging between international relations, trade, migration, health, and also artificial intelligence. So the discussion before here, we were talking separation about social innovation and more technology innovation. You are actually the bridging person between that. So I think it's excellent that I give you the floor. But I also would like to say, which I think for us representing different universities at Malmö, we have two research platforms that I think are quite unique. One is called Collaborative Future Making, and the other one is Rethinking Democracy. And you are the co-coordinator for both these two platforms. I think that's also worth to bring into your presentation. And by that, Michael, welcome to Gimrej. I don't know if I'm saying the right expression here, but the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. That was a very kind introduction. Thank you, Sissi, and also it's a great honor to be here. I'm very sorry that I can't be in such a very nice venue in person. I shall now share my screen, so just bear with me a moment. So hopefully that works. Can everybody see that? I think so. Yes, I can see it on the screen as well. Perfect. Okay, so this presentation then, what I'm going to talk about is the issue of social responsibility and connecting that to interdisciplinarity. And what I want to talk about, of course, much of it, I think, this is a case of preaching to the converted as such, that we all see the value of interdisciplinarity, and all of you can argue it much better than I can, I'm sure. But also I want to talk about some of the practical challenges, and also maybe some of the sort of conceptual foundations of what we mean by interdisciplinarity and how it relates to specialization. So just in terms of visualization then, so this is just a sample of front covers from a number of key books on this topic, and these are from different subfields, you could say. And of course, what we can see with all these is a common theme, that it's about connectivity. So we have networks, we have nodes connected by lines, or we also have a kind of an ecological motif here as well. There's something almost sort of something organic about interdisciplinarity. So that's a very common way of visualizing this idea of connecting different disciplines and fields. Another way is to think about it in terms of the different things. How can we connect different sets of questions, different types of interests, and also, of course, it's an excuse to show a picture of a dinosaur. Bringing this back to societal responsibility, some of these arguments are very familiar. But it helps to go through these, I think. So first of all, in terms of interdisciplinarity, what it helps us do in terms of connecting our research to society is, first of all, because we get practice in communicating between different disciplines, because we get practice in engaging with disciplines outside of those in which we have initially trained, then we overall improve our ability to communicate and engage with others outside of our usual workshops, publication venues, and so on. So that leads us to moving beyond our professional bubbles. But also an important aspect is also how interdisciplinarity interacts with the politics of how we move through academic careers. I'll come back to this a bit later as well. But I think, first of all, just the point of thinking outside career politics is very important, because for many of us, I think the reality of an academic career is different to the ideal of an academic career. And we're all in a balance between trying to push towards the ideal and trying to work against sometimes some of the sort of the economic pressures that we face when trying to move and sustain our careers as academics. Related to engagement and communication also is that interdisciplinarity makes it easier for us also to be transdisciplinary. So we can connect with those outside, not just our academic fields, but also academia overall. So we can work with very other different professionals in society. Also, that it opens new questions. And I think this is very, very clear that when talking with people in very different disciplines, that you suddenly realize that you have something to contribute and they have something to contribute to your own field. Co-production of knowledge. Also important is that in many cases, because we are getting better at communicating when we do interdisciplinary research, then it allows us to also show how our research can relate to real world problems. So whether that is improving government policy, whether it's relating to healthcare or the environment or whatever it is, that it what we call applied research. But I think also the other side of research, what is not unproblematically called basic research, that in communicating, you also learn how to make that type of research, traditional research, much more accessible to other audiences. So I don't want to spend, as I said, I wouldn't spend long on this slide because these are arguments you're familiar with, but I think it's important just to put them out here at this point. Conceptually, I wanted to work through how we are connecting disciplines and what is going on here in terms of, you could say, the ideational framework. So one is within interdisciplinarity, that to some extent we are treating different disciplines as equivalent, that in this particular discussion that we see as interdisciplinary, whatever that discussion is, that we say at this point all these different disciplines are equivalent, that they can be linked together. But important to that is also that we can say this is discipline A, this is discipline B, C, D, E, F, and so on. And in that, we are also defining these disciplines as different to one another. So interdisciplinarity involves an equivalence, but at the same time, that equivalence is based on that we can claim there is a difference between these fields, that these different fields, whatever we call them, are in some way definable as separate from one another. That is part of making it interdisciplinarity. The image here of a wall and the question mark, this is harder. This is much harder to explain what is going on in here. But in order for us to have this idea of interdisciplinarity or interdisciplinary knowledge, we're also defining it as against something else, that there is something that's not interdisciplinary. Now, in most of the discussion, at least at a generic level, then that is simply maybe it's siloization. We use these sorts of terms. What's the opposite of being interdisciplinary? But this is an open question. This is something we need to be aware of, what the way in which we construct this notion of interdisciplinarity. On the other side of interdisciplinarity, specialization, we all feel this in our professional context. So within the academy, we constantly come across pressures towards specialization. This is true in all universities to different degrees. So of course, in a doctoral education, for it to be merited to have the necessary paperwork and so on, it needs to produce a PhD in whatever that field is. The same thing goes for formal governmental or university level approval of your educational programs. So that includes the staff who we can say that they have training in this field, but also, of course, that the literature is seen as the correct literature for that field. We all experience the pressure towards specialization within publishing and also reviewing. We look to the go-to citations. We all experience this when we get a revise and resubmit, that we're asked comments like, we liked your article, we can see the point, but why didn't you consult this literature or that literature? And for those who are doing interdisciplinary research, we also know that it can often seem very hard to publish. You often get a lot of comments from reviewers where they're expecting you to engage with an impossible number of different literatures. And I think maybe most crucially, one of the biggest obstacles we face is in research funding, because of the way that committees are selected. It's very difficult to have a truly transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary evaluation committee. So that's kind of at the general level. Coming to what I want to talk about now is a interdisciplinary project that I've been part of in leading since the beginning of 2019. So in brief, the title of this project is FED, Precision Health and Everyday Democracy. And it's an externally funded project. And in brief, Precision Health covers many different things, including genomic factors, big data, societal determinants of health, questions of social segregation, as well as the role of policies in also creating differential health access. This is seen most obviously in the example I put there in the slide of citizenship status impacting access to healthcare. So this project, it was between precision health and everyday democracy. And the researchers involved are from those different disciplines. And initially the project was just to facilitate conversations between these different sorts of people, these different disciplines. And this included the usual sort of academic things that one does. So we organized a workshop in the US at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. And there we had a sort of total sort of geek fest because we got to see their very exciting machines and engage and listen to research from neurologists, from people working with cancer, molecules, a whole range of different fields, extremely exciting and inspiring to be around such extremely bright people. And they also came back to where we're based. So we organized a conference between Lund and Malmö universities. And again, this was very interdisciplinary. So, you know, the usual sort of academic stuff that one does, but quite interdisciplinary. And the kinds of outputs, the other activities we were doing, we also at the time led a Horizon 2020 application. This was focused on the prevalence of antimicrobial resistant infections in Europe, and looking at how to protect refugees hosted in those regions where there's a lot of this infection. It's a very politically controversial area for obvious reasons. But in this case, it was also one where you really do need to be interdisciplinary. You can't just have people who are working on AMR. You've got to have people who are engaged with the political, societal issues around migration. That particular project didn't get funding, but it led to some very interesting conversations which are continuing. And one project that we did get funded is one I'll come back to in a moment around AI and healthcare. Before I turn to that, I just want to talk about what happened to us with COVID. So the Horizon 2020 application, that was being put together at the same time. The virus emerged at the same time as we were completing the process. And what it meant for the project is, first of all, we started looking more at particularly how it was impacting migrants. So we produced some research looking at this. We've also done more research since comparing, for example, the situation of migrants in France, the UK, and Sweden. But also in terms of the project that was funded, we had the problem that we had a project that was about internationalization, but we could not travel. So what to do? And this gave us the excuse to try a different way of doing academia. So the notion of a commission is one which has been done in academia, most notably within the University of Warwick, with the Warwick Commission. We invited submissions from individuals, professionals who were working with aspects of healthcare during the pandemic, and we wanted to understand what were they experiencing, what sorts of solutions were they developing, and we wanted to archive this. And so in practice, it became a series of seminars. It was very interdisciplinary, civil society as well as healthcare practitioners, civil servants and researchers. We held two commissions, one in autumn 2020 and then one in spring 2021. And it started off being quite Swedish, but then it became much more international, including involving the WHO and the think tank Chatham House. And the archiving process was done online, so you could see the videos still. We treated the submissions as testimonial evidence. Each session was 2 hours. And the results were written up into a series of 2 written reports, which are targeted towards not an academic audience so much as more practitioners, policymakers, so they could use it within their work, so the lessons learned could be passed on. And just to show you a few images of how this worked. So this is just a still from the website, which also contains these videos. So this is from autumn 2020, and this is from spring 2021. And it was very international, as said, or became more and more international. And this is the English and Swedish front covers for the first report. The second report is about to come out.
Michael, do you
it's
hear
just
me?
in the final sort of.
Michael, do
Yep.
you hear me?
Yeah.
It is actually, I have to.
Yes, I can hear you.
I need to say to you that you need to wrap up. I know we were.
Oh, yes, sorry, thank you.
Because you were supposed to close at 10:50. So please just sort of do the wrap up and we can.
Yeah,
go back
absolutely.
To the
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. So just to wrap up then. So we've since moved into AI. And I can talk just very, very briefly. So we have 2 PhDs working on around this. So we have Jess Haney-Lavelle, who is looking at using an app as a way to explore how do you create a societal conversation between different actors about how to improve their healthcare. And we have Dennis Manetzi, who's looking at the case of healthcare apps to do with women's health in Zimbabwe. And both of these, importantly, they're working in the context of global politics, although they are crossing many different fields, as you would expect there. So we've continued here with outreach. So we've engaged in a number of other publications designed beyond an academic audience. But the thing I just wanted to quickly come to at the end here then, in terms of lessons learned so far, this key question that I wanted to put was, does crossing disciplinary borders first require making those borders, defining what is your specialist field? I think we can see that interdisciplinarity does support disciplinary strength. I don't think it means throwing one out to get the other. I also think it's clear that interdisciplinarity is essential for good academia and societal relevance. But we see that academia is very poor at supporting interdisciplinarity. I think, as said, the biggest hurdle are review boards, but in terms of kind of the path ahead, it is about continuing to find new ways of doing academia, getting academia out there, so we can show the value of interdisciplinarity. Yeah, so that's, I shall stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for a lot of really interesting, I think, examples of interdisciplinarity and outreach, not only in our community, but also across the world. I know that you are going to leave before we have the closing of this discussion here. So I would just ask if there's anyone that would directly ask a question to Michael, because I know there is one. Yeah? Could we have a microphone over there? They will try to find a microphone, Michael, so you know, hang on there. It's coming.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your talk. I wonder to know how you approach or manage time in relation to boundary, because interdisciplinarity is a question of boundary, of also change our way to teach or to work on the relation of time, because we are, in my generation, not so old, but not new, relation of time, it's very short, very high speed. And interdisciplinarity need to have another mindset. And how do you approach it? What do we need also to change in the teacher education, in the teacher training? Because in France, for example, since many years, normally, we have projects, for example, drawing lesson with history, but it's not work, really. It's not really the new way of teaching. It's exceptional way of teaching. So the idea is good, but in practice, I think that we need to go to the real basis from the teacher education and the student, our children education regarding to times and how to collaborate on question of boundary.
Thank you, Valerie. Michael, that was a long question in the introduction, but anyway, I hand over to you. Did you get the question?
Thank you.
Yeah?
I did, thank you. It's a very good question. I think definitely the first of all, the point about the boundary of our fields. I mean, of course, boundaries of fields are not static. They do change all the time. We know this from our own personal experiences and from just reading any kind of literature defining a field. But after time, these boundaries become increasingly kind of established, if successful, and then people become very defensive over them. I think we are being interdisciplinary. We need to always remember to be then respectful that we're entering into someone's house, someone else's house, meaning that we need to remember to use the correct citations, this kind of thing. I think the point about teacher education is really interesting, because I think when teaching, that in some ways that's where the space of being interdisciplinary is the greatest, not in terms of how teaching programs are evaluated, but rather the types of questions that students ask. So students, when they ask questions, they are the ones who are most open, I think, to the idea that you can connect different fields, you can speak across fields. I think what is rather, I think that the challenge is in terms of how we employ people, how we fund projects, how we accept publications, how we evaluate teaching programs, that we need to get better at, so we're not just reliant upon disciplinary boundaries for marking what is good or bad as such.
Thank you, Michael. And due to the time here now, we have to thank you for this presentation, and we do that with applause from here.
Thank you very much.
Starting the session, and by that I will hand over to our think tank for the Africa.
Thank you, Sissy. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Arnim, to present a voice from Africa. People who know Stellenbosch will say, are you Africa? We always have the challenge with our international students when they walk there and they see it so much like Europe. We tell them, no, it's also Africa. So I also want to recognize our colleague from Liège, Christine, who's also online for the conversations we had before. So the speaker from our side is Dr. Leslie van Rooy,
who's the Senior Director for Stellenbosch University Social Impact and Transformation. And he and his team are responsible for engaging with the broader society, but also very importantly with the immediate community around the university through the engagement with the local government, but also other government departments. Leslie holds a PhD in theology, and he's quite famous within the media and for conversations on topics related to social impact and the role of universities within the community. Leslie, I hope you're still there. Over to you.
Thanks, Robert. There is a difference between being famous and infamous. I'm almost certain the second one applies. Colleagues, I'm very sad that I cannot be where Robert is currently, but I am in a bridal room. So if you think the pink is deliberate on the wall at my back, it is quite. We are in the middle of another conference just outside of Stellenbosch, and the best spot that they could allow me for this breakaway is a bridal dressing room. No brides here today, but I'll share my screen and present from this side. The presentation, as Robert has helped to contextualize, will be about Stellenbosch University's link with its publics, and then in particular, the link with the most local of its publics. And some of the interdisciplinary questions that came up in Michael's presentation, I think will also come up here. I will give you a very brief overview of the university. Some of you know the university context well. I'll share something of the principles of our engagement, our deliberate structures devised around the nature of engagement. Then two very brief examples of recent engagements and structures linked to COVID-19, and then our broader involvement very briefly. Stellenbosch, as some of you know, is a medium-sized university in the context of South Africa with 33,000 students. Roughly 60% of those students are undergraduate and 40% postgraduate on 5 campuses, of which the Stellenbosch campus is the major one. We have an open campus, very similar to some of the European partner universities. It means that the university's buildings is mixed with private property, public institution type buildings like the local government or local municipality. So extremely open with everything that comes with an open campus. And of course, given the nature of the university and its role, we regard it as a major employer and an anchor institution. Now, in the context of South Africa, anchor institution pre-COVID has not been that positive. It sounded a bit arrogant. During COVID and post-COVID, it seems as if the notion of anchor institutions, specifically given the help of these institutions in the COVID period, has made the term positive. Perhaps just to give you a understanding of perhaps also the difference between the university and the municipality, perhaps the starkest difference is in our budgets. The municipality always complained that the university's budget is more than 4 times more than the local government's budget. Of course, it is difficult to quantify in that precise sense, but it gives you an idea of the financial and social impact of the university in this space. And then, of course, Stellenbosch has a very particular history, and that is of exclusion. So although the university did or does not have any boundaries and gates that closes it off from the rest of the town, historically, this is what we did. And we are still experienced as a university with self-boundaries or self-boundaried university. In South African terms, it is regarded as an historically white institution, and that really means that historically this university only catered for white South Africans, which meant, of course, that the largest groupings of population in South Africa could not study here. That is, of course, part of the past and has been for a while. And our principles of engagement I show here, and I hope that is clear. Perhaps the most primary and basic principle, both in research and in how we link the university with its publics is that of knowledge exchange. And that means that we see each other as knowledge partners, which allows for knowledge exchange between publics, the university, academia, society, etc. And I'll share something of the quadruple helix later. Therefore, we don't understand a social impact or community engagement as separate from research and teaching and learning. It is deeply embedded through a variety of programs, the way we teach and the way we do. Of course, it does also mean that we must constantly engage. That means that sometimes processes take longer. We cannot always take immediate decisions in, for example, processes linked to new symbols on campus or the renaming of buildings. It often asks for a deeper, longer process of engagement. One of the other principles given our history is that of restitution or making right, that we do through our investment in local schools, specifically under-resourced schools, the allowing for scholarships, and of course, a growing own timber philosophy. Robert would indicate that indeed the engagement that we do, we measure or try to quantify and qualify in terms of the SDGs. I really like the notion of keeping people inspired more than measuring, but of course, a measurement or measuring allows us also to focus our specific initiatives. And then we are regarded as a major research institution on the continent and also in the local, with feeding into an infrastructure of social innovation, entrepreneurship, etc., in partnership with not only the most local, but also the province nationally and continentally. To make sure that these principles flow out and structure well, we have internal and external structures. It was quite important for us to be deliberate in our vice principal's title, my own title, and as Robert indicated, to have an office for social impact, and that this notion of social impact and engagement should also flow out in all our schools or academic departments, or in the South African terms, our faculty. And therefore, we have 9 faculty committees for social impact across the disciplines, and we have community-based representatives in one of our governance structures that approves university policies, namely our institutional forum. That is the internal part. Externally, the university sits jointly on what is termed the Rector-Mayor Forum. We meet 4 times a year formally, with subcommittees meeting throughout the year that works on transport-related issues, infrastructure-related matters, safety and security, and water, and most recently also electricity or energy-related matters, where the resources of both the municipality and the university is enhanced and linked with that of the private sector and society to bring together workable solutions for the communities in and around Stellenbosch. Then there are town-related structures that both the university and the municipality serves on. The SCAN structure, that is the Stellenbosch Civil Advocacy Network, brings together most of the NGOs in Stellenbosch around themes where the university is a partner. The same with the Stellenbosch Network. That is a network that consists of all the large employers in the country that focus on, not in the country, in the town, a network that focuses on entrepreneurship and enhancing entrepreneurship. And then, of course, given the nature of Stellenbosch, also the tourist structure in Visit Stellenbosch that also allows for an impact or relatedness between tourism and economic development. I'll be brief about this. I know we are short on time. Just to say, we had to rearrange structures and be quicker, more agile during COVID to support civil society, the non-profit sector, and the municipality. And luckily, the town, in the private sector, the public sector, business, civil society, and the university would come together for that. In these 2 examples that I share now, both in terms of supporting local communities with something as specific as food parcels, to delivering aid in a variety of forms, also in protective gear, in a local level and on a national, perhaps also regional level, also delivering, amongst others, delivering into the national ventilator project guided by the South African government. And this is linked to the major involvement, and that is, of course, our focus is primarily on schools. Let me just go back one slide. Our focus is primarily on schools. All schools in the Stellenbosch region, the university has a footprint in, but our focus is, of course, on high schools. Our involvement in linking the business sector, the NGO sector, the local government sector, and civil society, we do in an attempt to make sure that some of the major challenges in the context of Stellenbosch is addressed, focused on, and that we are deliberate in that. As an institution, we also make funding available. Perhaps lastly, I should mention that to our faculties and our academic staff, to our students, to jointly, and it is a struggle to do it in an interdisciplinary matter, but we try to jointly also between schools and faculty and students to allow socially impactful, innovative initiatives to both start and establish itself in relation to supporting some of the social challenges in the most local of our communities, and given the restitution focus, also to bridge the apartheid-based divides in our local society. It is not perfect by any means, but in the structures of our town and our university, and with the support of government, both local, provincial, and national, it allows the university to indeed play an anchor role, both as mediator and as implementer of knowledge, as a knowledge exchange partner in relation to the various locals. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Since you did so good on time, I want to ask Christine if she wants to perhaps just close off by asking you a question. Christine?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Van Rooij for the example. This is a very interesting example that the university can have, the impact that the university can have within its region to promote the development, the sustainable goals, the sustainable development goals, and the ecological and also social transition within its community in the economic and social development terms. I think it's a very good example, and the structures is very interesting. And I have two questions. The first one concerns the involvement of the student. You talk a little about the student, but I was asking if the students of the university are also integrated in this system, in these structures, because we have a campus in the University of Liège which try to implement campus in transition. And we think it's important to realize connection and to connect research, society, and for the young researcher and the student. We try to involve the society, young researcher and students. And I think it could be a good idea to share experience about this, because it's a challenge for the social innovation, I suppose. And the second question is about the territory, the area. Your example focuses on the university and its community, its territory. And I was wondering if you have collaboration with other universities in South Africa or at regional level to support this university in playing a similar role. For example, at the University of Liège, we have some projects between University of Liège and an African university or an African higher education institution to strengthen them, to strengthen the impact on local development. So we have a partnership between University of Liège and one university in Africa, and that involves other actors, private or not, NGOs, civil society. For example, it could be a farmers association, entrepreneurships association, or women's group, for example, to support this group in the development of economic activities. And this sort of network or platform also could be interesting to it could be interesting to share the experience about such projects or network, and how to implement them, how to improve them, and also how to measure the outcomes. That's it. I think it's rather long already.
Thanks, Christine. Excellent questions. I will briefly answer, and I'm very sure Robert will also share input. I must say, in the history of the university, the engagement activities, without a doubt, was started and energized by students. That is perhaps also the nature of a residential university. So most of the endeavors and crossing boundaries in aid and in support and in collaboration later with local communities was student-based. Now, and that is exactly right in the example that you used from your university. Now we want to bring the three partners together. That is academics and specifically then also through research, students through teaching and learning and volunteering, and then of course our various community partners. We, in funding, always want to see that students are directly involved, and in anything socially innovative, we found that the individuals most responsive and most willing to engage on matters that will ask for social innovation are our students, both undergrad and postgraduate students, which in the end sometimes also leads to the practice, in essence, also sometimes leads to continuous research and implementation. Also changes in policies and bylaws I've seen. So very often a group of students will present at the Rector Mayor Forum, for example, on e-transport or smarter electricity usage or water usage, etc., to prompt the local government and the university to think differently about that. And we can implement and change our behavior and structures also through prompting research that flows from that. The second question is about collaboration, and there I can mention two examples. One is that in the area that Robert and I work in, there are 3 other universities in an 80-kilometer radius, perhaps less than 80. And these universities are joined in a consortium called the Cape Higher Education Consortium that wants to involve the universities on a number of levels to cooperate. And that we do, amongst others, through joint research endeavors and joint practice in enhancing the possibilities of the province to address some of the most desperate needs of the province. The consortium also makes funding and expertise available, brings together partners from the business sector, the NGO sector, the Office of the Mayor in Cape Town, the Office of the Premier in Cape Town, to make sure that the universities are utilized in sharing knowledge and in creating a platform where knowledge exchange can take place. And then, of course, and Robert is the holder of this, Stellenbosch University is involved in the so-called, not so-called, called Town and Gown Network. And that is a network of universities with similar town or small city spaces where the university's influence is strong enough and active enough to enable the borders, albeit virtual borders, between the town and the university to be recreated into bridges to make sure that we cross-support and cross-share both expertise and knowledge, and to allow universities, through students, through staff, and other sectors to address and aid some of the challenges in society.
I hand over to another voice from the south. And so Leslie, thank you. Enjoy your bridal room.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, we move from Africa to Latin America. It's a small jump. So I'm very glad in the frame of the think tank Latin America that I'm coordinating together with Camilo to introduce you to Camilo. For those who don't know him, Camilo is the head of the research units, but also responsible for networks at the Universidad Los Andes in Colombia. So for research opportunities, he's always looking for new connections. And I think there an opportunity for the YES group is very key. But also he very knows well the systems, the funding systems in Colombia, but also in Latin America, and also the link to Europe. So he's, of course, very well aware of funding schemes in the European context. But besides this, of course, he's the liaison for our Latin America think tank. And he's responsible for networks, but also he has good relations with governmental bodies in Colombia, such as embassies. He worked in the embassy in Germany, the Colombian embassy in Germany. So he's the greatest partner for leading the think tank Latin America. So he's also a bridging person between Europe and what we have in Latin America. He will bring a presentation today on the social impact of universities in Colombia, and also will focus on some specific good practices in UNIANDES. So I give you the floor, and then we can discuss later on possible discussions. Camilo.
Thank you, Barbara, for the very nice introduction, and good morning, everyone here on stage and joining us online. So I just want to share some insights from our Colombian perspective on how we understand social impact, the social responsibility of universities in our country. Maybe it is similar to what we've seen so far from what we all do, but still we wanted to share this to enrich our discussion and maybe to compare it at the end and to see what can we learn from each other. In this presentation, I wanted to focus on beyond the campus. That is what we do with our external community. In some previous occasions, we have shared what we do with our internal community, the social responsibility that we also have with our students and with our internal community. But here I wanted to focus on the external, extended community. And I want to start explaining a little bit of the general context of social responsibility in Colombia for universities. Then I will bring a little bit of the internal perspective from UNIANDES, and at the end I will share a couple of examples, both from the country and from our universities. So in Colombia, as everywhere, education is a public good with a social function, and I bring here some excerpts from different positions papers, from different guidelines from the National Council of Higher Education, the National Accreditation Council, and the Association of Colombian Universities. And what I wanted to highlight here is that we see education and universities as key players for transforming our society. So we are embedded in a society. We, as Colombian universities, must insert in the national reality we have, which is not always a success story. We have many challenges as a nation, as a country. So we see a very active role involving in this reality, and we have to produce knowledge and to bring this knowledge and to solve these problems. And this is clear, and this is not only stated in some position papers and some documents, but we really see this in our daily activities at Colombian universities. In the national accreditation system or framework for quality in higher education, we also have several elements related to the social impact of our activities. And these are just these are some examples. So in order for us to get an accreditation as a high quality university, we need to provide evidence on on our institutional commitment to programs aimed at solving problems from the communities. In the regional context, we have very different regional contexts in Colombia, depending on where we are located. We need to provide evidence on of the impact of the programs and activities on the so-called third mission that we've discussed so far, including social innovation, social outreach, technology transfer, spin-off creation, etc. And very importantly, we need to provide evidence of the impact of actions aimed at vulnerable populations in our institution's area of influence. So within this national, let's say, context and framework, then each institutions develop their own strategies and framework for including the social responsibility component. And of course, as it might be in most of our cases, in our institutional mission, we have embedded this aspect. So in our mission, we state that we want to provide students with critical and ethical education so that they can strengthen their awareness of their social and civic responsibilities, as well as their commitment to their surroundings. And then, starting from this mission, we develop our strategy. So we have every 5 years an institutional development plan, and a strategic one. And in the current one, for example, we have 3 dreams of what we want to become as a university. And in all these dreams, you can find this social component. So for example, in the first one, we want to be a university that transforms lives and contributes in this way to the transformation of society. Again, we see the transformation of society as one of the repeating aspects that it's important to us. We want to be a university that promotes the well-being of all our members, pluralism, social justice, and gender equity and diversity. And we want to be a university that works to achieve a significant impact on knowledge generation, sustainability, democratic debate, reform proposals, and the construction of hopeful and inclusive narratives. So here in this third dream, we see this idea of being drivers of change, not only passive actors in the society. We want to be very active, proposing solutions and working on these solutions. Then, in more specific aspects of how we implement these strategies and these policies, we see just as examples in the professors' statutes that in order for professors to advance within their academic career at the university, they can also demonstrate the institutional development with the external sector. So if they conduct activities with the external sector, and this can be processes, innovation processes, solving business challenges, but also governmental and societal challenges. So they can demonstrate this as part of their career or the track at the university. And for the students, we also encourage them to be active. In addition to the normal academic projects, we have an award, a distinction for university social responsibility. And this is awarded to students who demonstrate and who perform outstanding extracurricular activities with a positive community impact. So this is also a way to encourage the students to be active and contribute with ideas and projects. So within this context, this framework, I want to bring a couple of examples. And the first one is a fairly recent one. It's a countrywide initiative that was led by 6 leading universities. So starting in 2019, but building up until last year, there was a lot of social protest in the country, a lot of, it was even a national strike. It got really complicated, a very long one. And there was a clear gap between the government and the young people and the people who were protesting. And the people felt that they were not being heard by the government, that they were really disconnected, that the government was deaf and not paying attention to what they were demanding. So, and very important, the society, the citizens who were protesting felt that didn't have an effective channel to bring their needs to the government. So 6 universities, including Uniandes, took the role of leading a national dialogue, very diverse. It was called Tenemos que Hablar Colombia, and this was actually inspired by a previous Chilean experience who proved to be very successful. So the universities created a platform for dialogue and for citizen advocacy. And the idea was to bring all different groups together in a national context. It was a dialogue of dialogues with 62, let's say, initiatives across the country. We conducted 28 regional dialogues out of the 32 regions that we have in Colombia, our departments, 13 events, and even 21 negotiations, active negotiations between different stakeholders of the government. So the idea was that the university being seen as neutral actors, as actors that could bring different perspectives together, we took this role very actively. And we delivered, and are still delivering, a lot of different documents, position papers, mandates from the citizens. And these are not just being collected, but we are delivering them to the policymakers, to the new president. Some months ago, these were also discussed with the different presidential candidates so that they could bring all these results from these dialogues into the policy and into their proposals. At the end, the idea was to build trust because with this national strike, it was clear that trust was not existing between the government and the people. The society was also very polarized, so universities also took this role of let's facilitate conversation between people who are thinking very differently. And at the end, the results were very positive. This is still an ongoing project. Many results are being systematized from all these dialogues and are being delivered to the Congress, to the Parliament, to the President and the ministers. So this is just one example of what universities can do, and this very much builds up on previous experiences of the role that the university took during the peace negotiations that also took place some years ago in the country. So these are examples of what can we do actively in the society. And then I wanted to share some examples from our university. The first one is an institutional project bringing directives, professors, students, like the whole community. It's called the Fenicia Project. Fenicia is the immediate vicinity of Universidad de los Andes. This is the area of Bogota where the university is located. And the idea of this project is to develop a comprehensive social, environmental, economic, and urban planning program. This is very important because some years ago, a couple of decades ago, the university started expanding. And the neighborhood where the university is located, it's in need of an urban renewal. Maybe this picture you can see, the green building is a building from the university, and you see the neighborhood. Traditionally, it was a workers' neighborhood, not a very rich one. And so with the university expansion, there was gentrification, and the community were being driven out. So the university say, we have to do this differently. We have to think a different way. We need to do urban planning, but together with the community. This is a very long project. It is still ongoing. But the idea was not only, and the motto of this project was that we all move forward, but we all stay. The idea is that the people living in this community don't have to be taken out due to gentrification. They want to really create a model where it's a participative model of planning and defining how to evolve. And in addition to this urban planning component, the project developed many social programs with the community. So the idea at the end is to provide tools and capacity so that they have better opportunities. So we have many different programs with children, with the elderly, with the young people for employment, and also capacity building projects. This is, again, an interdisciplinary project with the participation of the whole university. But we also have specific research projects with high societal impact. Just to mention an example, this is one that it can be translated as seeds of attachment or of bonding between mother and child. The idea was to accompany families and mothers that were exposed to violence so that they can promote this close bonding with the children so that they have a positive impact on their development. What I wanted to mention here is that we also have an internal prize at the university recognizing this type of research projects that are very applied, that have high impact on the society. So every year we award a prize for outstanding projects that have this characteristic. And then, of course, we also have a students' activity, many different ones. We have a course on social practice where students learn what's important when dealing with community projects. And they start already with some community projects. And then there are many initiatives, voluntary initiatives that are initiated by the students that they can propose, they get support, they get capacity building support by the university. And the examples here are manifold and different. So with this, I wanted to finish my presentation. I had here some questions that we can further discuss today, but very importantly in the think tank for the social mission of university. And we have been talking about this. How can we recognize, how can we measure this impact? If the question if the impact rankings are a good way to measure this contribution or not, and if the current higher education and scientific system encourages this or blocks this type of initiatives. So I thank you for your attention.
I don't know whether there are specific questions for the presentation of Camilo, because I have one. Oh, you also have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the conversation we had yesterday about IS and so on, it's very clear that the contexts are very different. So my question is, in what way do you involve international students in the different student projects?
This is a great question, and after Marina's workshop yesterday, I was reflecting a lot on that. I brought here a very local perspective, but it is true that we are not involving as much the internationalization. We need to add the I to all these initiatives. Maybe in some of the voluntary activities from students, exchange students do participate, some of them on a voluntary basis, but this is not being done systematically. So we can definitely improve on this. We need to continue working on this adding this internationalization aspect of all these initiatives. Again, we also have some of the projects that are conducted by faculty, the research projects. Many have this characteristic of solving specific problems in Colombia, and many are conducted in international collaboration. This could be another example on when and how we involve the internationalization aspect into this. But again, it's maybe not really systematic, so we can definitely improve on that, on how to bridge our international efforts with these social efforts.
If I may use the opportunity, so what we on our side do is that we have a little course about how to engage with the community in the South African context for international students, and then they then embark on 2 or 3 projects. We try to link it up with local students. It's not always successful. And the interesting debates is about why am I doing it? And that answer differs also from the European region a student will be coming. The Dutch students quite often say, am I doing it just to feel good about it? While others have the deep conversation about really making a difference and contributing and so on. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Your question?
Arnim, you have a question?
Sissy?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And through the morning here, and especially with your presentation of this trying to gain trust, but that must have been an enormous project. I'm really impressed. So hearing that, it came to my mind that I think we need to revisit the way we educate at universities. I talked yesterday about challenge-based learning. We heard about project-based learning, bringing the empowerment to the student and being very much involved. We talked about research not being traditional. It's a power of asking the research question. So again, if we go outside the university, involving citizens and getting a co-collaboration around the issues of research focus, I think that is also breaking a lot of these, invisible, hinders that we do have. But I also think it's a political issue. How much do we really want universities to bring social change? So my question to you is really, I know it's maybe $100 question, whatever, $1 million question. With your experience from being at all these levels, societal, political, and university, what kind of changes could university, because we can start tomorrow. I mean, this is nothing we have to wait for 200 years. So please, Camille, give us some directions of what you think would be beneficial for university to get started on already tomorrow.
Yes. With this process, which was indeed very complex, and it was started by universities, but then many institutions joined us in this endeavor because it was really a national-wide endeavor. It was clear that the message from the 6 rectors and presidents of these universities was, we want to be political universities. We cannot allow us to be passive at this very difficult moment in the country. Negotiations between the government and the society were stalling, they were not advancing, so we decided we need to take a role in this. And thinking on this, I was also thinking on the discussion we had yesterday on the many challenges we are facing in the world and in Europe. And this might be a different way of doing this science or higher education diplomacy, because it's not only bringing messages from academics to the policymakers or to the decision makers, but it's bringing the message of many citizens of the society, and from different perspectives. It wasn't just a group of the society. There were really tough discussion on different political views from different groups in the society as a polarized society as the Colombian one. So I think universities can definitely take an active role in this. It's not easy to coordinate this type of large dialogues, but I think we could start in groups, bringing together different stakeholders and starting. It was also a matter of defining methodologies for leading this conversation, and also how to systematize all this knowledge and all these discussions, and how to make a summary about it to deliver a policy recommendation. So there were many disciplines involved, many different levels of coordination, of active enrollment that the universities in Colombia did, and I think we could do this in a network such as ours, as a concrete task. I mean, it's not concrete, it's a huge task, but it's something that we can start discussing within our universities.
Thank you so much for being here.
I have a question linked to that, maybe the last one.
I had a question,
yeah, you
actually.
Also, sorry.
So I asked the next to last question, and you asked the last one.
Yeah.
You made me curious, Camilo. Thank you for your presentation. When you mentioned that social innovation and social impact is part of the accreditation process of a university in Colombia. And so my question is, how is the weight of that criteria, and how is it expected to be delivered as a proven impact, measurement, and evidence? Because that is something that is very pioneering, I would say.
But it's a difficult task, and it's, the accreditation system in Colombia started back in the year 2000, the institutional accreditation of the universities, and this social impact is also, it's being present since the first edition. The latest edition of the guidelines for accreditation were launched 2 years ago, last year, 2021. And they switch, before, in the previous version, we just needed to provide a list of activities. What are we doing without measuring impact? So it was just a matter of presenting different projects and initiatives and this. The system is like, we do an initial auto-evaluation report, we deliver it to the commission, they engage external peers, peer reviewing system, and then there are visits and discussions, and then they evaluate and give recommendations. So that's overall the system. So now with the new system, which is being discussed hectically, they switched to impact evaluation. And of course, we know impact evaluation is very complicated. And if you want to measure impact, you have to prove a causality link with the activity and what your expected impact is. So we are currently discussing how to measure that, because the National Accreditation Agency delivered an enormous list of things that we need to show, evidence that we need to provide, and not only the activity, but the impact. But we are currently in this discussion. How do we measure this? So I think it's a broader discussion. It's not so easy. So far, what we're doing is we still show the activities that we conduct. And regarding the weight, there are no specific weights. There are like a list of 12 main factors. One of these is social responsibility and social impact. But this is all, this is a big part of the overall evaluation, the auto-evaluation, the self-evaluation, and then the evaluation by peers. But it's not that every factor has a specific factors. But it is an ongoing discussion. Last week, we had a meeting of the Association of Colombian Universities, and this was the main agenda. How can we make this very, yes, it's very, it's a very demanding way of measuring all that we do. And not only on the social impact, in every single aspect, they were demanding, provide evidence of the impact. So it is a challenge.
And it's a wonderful bridge to what we will come back to in one of the workshops that Cecilia and I are facilitating in the afternoon. Okay. Thanks for this answer.
Okay, then the last one. I was also impressed by political power that you have, but also the embedding it in your strategy of the university, let's say. But I was wondering to understand a little bit the context of Colombia. Is it specifically for public universities, or because there are a lot of private universities as well? So maybe to understand a little bit more about raising knowledge about the Colombian system. Is it very specific to the public? Because I saw the 6 universities were strong public universities. The private universities, do they have the same level of engagement in accreditation? Do they have the same level of cooperation and political pressure, let's say, or dialogue? So what is a little bit the context here? So
just to mention one thing, out of these 6 universities, I think 4 were private, Uniandes included, but also EAFIT and Universidad del Norte, if I'm not mistaken. So in Colombia, the system is really divided, not divided, it's distributed between public and private universities. The rough estimation is that 50% of students go to a public university and 50% to private universities. The private universities are not for-profit, so we say we deliver a public good, but with private administration. So at the end, it's not exclusive, it's not something exclusive of public university. Private university, like Universidad de los Andes, we see that we have this role, and we can be active, and we are active. And traditionally, Universidad de los Andes has been close to the policymakers, to the government, not in a political, I don't mean supporting a given political position, but always participating actively in policymaking processes and so on. So it's not it's a combined system of the universities. And then when you see the university that started this initiative, it happened that the presidents or rectors were very prominent figures with political weight, so that they were able also to start this and to put this on the public agenda and to say, look, we want to collaborate the coordination of all these voices that are not advancing. So of course that also needs commitment and this public voice, but we had at the time a rector that was very visible. He was a former minister and presidential candidate and at the time. So he had this political way to start and to bring this discussion. Of course, it's not always black and white. There are many questions like, should universities become so political? But again, here we were not taking a given stance, but just facilitating coordination and bringing the different voices. But still, it is a line that it's complicated. Sometimes you need to be. There were a lot of internal discussion also, like how political can the university become? It's an open question.
Thank you very much. What a great panel. Before we start to make a short break, I would like to say a few words. We were always talking about students and doctoral students, how important it is, young research, to be involved. And I'm very happy that we are moving to that now and putting the finalists of our PhD competition now on the spotlights, give you a stage. It's really wonderful that we are doing this. And of course, we're impressed that you made the trip to come to Guimarães from as far as, I don't know if it's the Bandura or Bendigo campus of La Trobe University in Melbourne. And to talk to us. It was a very hard decision. The short videos were really very exciting. And of course, we did not only ask you to come here to perform, but also to network and start to increase your personal connections, and of course to get inspired and inspire us. And now we have some technical changeover, and maybe some of you want to use this for a short health break. We will reunite in 10 minutes here for the performance of our PhD finalists. And for that, I will be very happy to hand over to our hostess, Agatha, who will be then the MC of this competition. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes, now, okay. So, hi everybody, welcome back. As Arnim already announced, we will now have a nice ceremony for our PhD competition finalists. The 5 finalists will be evaluated live today. They will tell us about the research in 3 minutes with a pitch. And then we will also have questions for you. But before going to this part, I would kindly invite my colleague Mar to tell us a little bit how the PhD competition was organized by the S Group. Please, Mar.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mar Fernandez. I come from the University of Valladolid. And I had an idea, which I transferred to the executive committee. They welcomed it, and we together developed it. And this is the final product, and I'm very happy to present it to you. This is about the S Group PhD training and competition. First edition, I hope. I hope this is the beginning, but we will have more editions. This is a unique opportunity of our students, PhD students, or for our university to raise visibility of research within the S Group network. We are using the University of Queensland model, but with a different approach. The PhD candidates will be supported in improving rhetoric skills in terms of presenting scientific results in English to non-scientific audience. They will gain, with this experience, they're gaining skills in research, communication, and presentation. And we are reaching the policy priority for open science of the European community. we had a large number of candidates, I think around 48. Out of them, 26 were eligible, and they were from 18 S-group universities. They received a 2-day training, 7 hours, delivered by Rick Okita from Impulse Plus, who is a professional on the field. He's an actor, in fact. And they were trained on the improvement of rhetorical and listener engagement skills and strategies, and they were prepared for pitch for the competition. So the participants submitted their 3-minute thesis speech, which was judged by an international jury, and the top selected were announced publicly, and the 5 finalists, as she said, are here to compete for the first place. All finalists will receive a 1,000 mobility grant to conduct the research abroad. The criteria we are following are the content, the engagement, the structure and time management, the language, the vocal delivery, the non-verbal language, and the recording. So I'm looking forward to hearing the 5 finalists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mar. Okay, at this point we are ready. Are you ready? 5 finalists? Great. So I will invite to the stage our first candidate, who is Diana Tepper. I was practicing the pronunciation of the names, of course. She is a PhD candidate at La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. Please come to the stage, and the floor is only you. Who is keeping the time? The jury? No answer? Arnim, are you keeping the time for the 3 minutes? Do you? Okay, it's Joanna, so please.
For any parents in the audience, it may interest you to know that having your children help out with chores can have more benefits than simply taking some of the strain off of you. For example, past research has suggested that children who help out with chores are more likely to grow up to become happy, healthy, and independent adults. But do the benefits end there? My name is Diana, and I'm a PhD candidate from La Trobe University, Australia. My research explores whether children's engagement in chores can improve their cognition. In particular, I study a series of cognitive abilities referred to as executive functions. These executive functions are the cognitive skills that allow us to plan, problem solve, and make decisions. For children, using these skills can be quite challenging, and unfortunately for some children, these abilities may even be impaired, which can have negative long-term outcomes. This includes on academic performance, later employment opportunities, as well as overall life satisfaction. As such, finding ways to improve these skills is crucial. The home may actually offer one of the best places to start developing these skills. Just think to what activities you do on a regular basis which require cognitive input. For example, activities such as cooking require you to focus on the recipe, to understand the instructions, to move between different tasks, such as when you're in the middle of cutting up vegetables, but you have something burning on the stove, and therefore even problem solve if that recipe goes wrong. These activities provide children, and adults as well, with unique opportunity to practice these skills. And yet, despite this, very little research is actually being conducted. In our study, we asked parents worldwide to report on their child's engagement in chores and their child's executive functions. Chores are explored in 2 ways. We looked at self-care chores, which are activities that just benefit the child, such as making their own bed, as well as family care chores, which are activities that benefit the household, such as helping to prepare a meal. We found, after we controlled for the effects of age, gender and disability, that both self-care and family care chores significantly predicted executive functions. To date, our study is one of the first to explore this relationship. We do note that at the present we cannot determine the directionality of that research, but nonetheless we highly stress that further research is actually conducted. We do note that for children, actually getting them to do chores can be quite a challenge, and they don't really like to do them, but nonetheless we encourage that parents do this for your benefit, but more importantly, for your child's. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana. Please take a seat. That was perfect timing. So now I'm inviting our second finalist. She is Diana Kisakye, a PhD candidate at the University of Bayreuth in Germany. Please.
Let me take you back to 1972. In Uganda, my home country, the Chief Justice, our very first at the time, who's the head of the judiciary, was abducted from his chambers, where he works. That was during Idi Amin's time, so you can imagine. Shortly after he was killed, his body never to be found. This graphic you see over here, taken exactly 50 years later, doesn't paint a better picture of our judiciary. But I'm not here to make you all gloomy like I started. Instead, my research shows that if we focus on judicial agency, actors that work inside and outside of the judiciary, we can see we don't have to cry for the judiciary. My name is Diana Kisakye, a student at the University of Bayreuth, working with the Africa Cluster Multiple of Excellence. I take a different approach, drawing on what I call Afrocentric narratives to tell our stories, not really drawing from the European experience, which of course we must, but as you saw in my previous speech, I tried to relate this to the European Union. Today, though, I'm focusing on Africa. I'm saying that my research shows through following the courts from Burundi in Bujumbura to Kampala, I find that judges are proactive proponents of constructing their power. That's what I'm calling my PhD. And I find that judges are not mere mechanical interpreters of the law, but they're people like you and I. They look at the political realities of the day and make decisions that help advance themselves. So judges are not people that, well, as my graphic shows you, that just sort of go to the whims of the executive and do as they're told. On the contrary, my PhD finds that judges, as I've emphasized, are human beings that make decisions despite the political realities of the day. So I think this is not an Africa problem. Don't look at what I'm presenting to you as just an Africa thing. Instead, judiciaries worldwide are being threatened. We've seen that all over the world, really. So I hope that taking on research like this, exploring topics that we may sometimes find boring or not accessible, could tell us something about democracy, as we've been talking about today, about relations between the three literal branches of government. And without talking so much more, I think I've made my point. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Diana. That was even before the 3 minutes. Great. Okay, our third finalist, Michka Shariari, is a PhD candidate at the University of Lille in France. Halma Laboratory is written here as well. Please, Michka.
Imagine you are living in the wild. Your daily comfort? Forget it. No cities, just small groups trying to survive. Difficult, right? Hopefully, humanity created society, structured and organized with lots of networks. And it's working thanks to administration. What is it? Where is it coming from? Let me tell you an old story. I suggest that we go back where all started, in the Middle East, antiquity, where humankind started to create villages, which became cities, then kingdoms and empires. In the first millennium BC, worldwide empires started to grow. The Persian Empire managed to be a huge one. It controlled more than 20 countries with different cultures and religions and had a dozen of spoken and written languages. this multiculti society was leaning on an efficient administrative system. Today, to record everything, we're using digital information run by computer, but in 1500 BC. How was it working? Archaeological excavation revealed the vestige from the past. In old cities, in palaces, in temples, we found inscriptions on different materials, on papyri, on parchment, on tablets, even on small fragment of ceramic called ostraca. I repeat, ostraca, small fragment of ceramic bearing a text. One part of my job is to decode and analyze 2,000 inscriptions on ostraca, and I'm focusing on one language called Aramaic. I created a big database to extract and compare all the information from these inscriptions. We can start to reconstruct names, dates, titles, and with historical analysis, different stories emerge about some scribe, some chief administrator, some craftsmen, even some slaves. It's both the recreation of the daily life of our ancestors and the understanding of this whole society. What was going on during that time? How was working this society? How were they dealing with and solving their problem? Past, present, and future are linked. And to understand and improve our reality, my job is to reveal one tiny part of our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Michka. Please. Great. Now our fourth finalist, Nitesh Godara. She is a PhD candidate at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU, in Norway. Here she comes.
Hello, everyone. First of all, let me tell you a story about how my PhD started. So there is a small village in western part of Norway. Just imagine a Norwegian beautiful village, surrounded by high mountains and snow on tip of those mountains and a beautiful fjord right in front of that village. People were living really happily there. But one day, this village was destroyed. How? Because it rained a lot on those mountains and the village was hit by a flash flood. The flood was so bad that all the underground cables, power lines were destroyed. The roads and bridges were broken, leaving huge gaps in the landscape, making it even more difficult for the rescue team to reach the village. Many people's houses were damaged, and one of them was my supervisor's house. And that's how my PhD started on flash floods. Flash floods are the floods which comes very quickly, and it destroys everything within a matter of few hours. So, what I do in my PhD is that I try to find out critical locations in those areas. Those are most prone to flood damages. And do you know that these floods are just not in this area? It is not a one case. These cases are increasing in the world because of the global warming and climate change. Stranger things are happening because of the climate change. Suddenly, temperature increases in winter, and it starts to rain on the snow. And the snow melts even faster because of this sudden temperature increase, and which again contributes to more flash floods. So I try to simulate these flash flood events and rain on snow events in such a way that are more time efficient, consumes less time, and more simpler and accurate. And the results from my simulations you can look in this picture, where it is an area which will look like this if flood happens. And this picture contains the water depth and the speed of that water, showing the areas which are most prone to flooding. And if we have this kind of flood risk maps everywhere in the world, we can save a lot of people's lives and their properties, unlike my supervisor's house. Thank you.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Last but not least, after 4 young ladies, finally a man, please. Radu Dan Irini is a PhD candidate at Babeș-Bolyai University in Romania.
We are unique. You and me might look different. We might think differently in various contexts, one of which, the workplace. But did you ever consider that your perception of diversity, as well as your perception of how diversity is managed inside the organization, can actually influence your performance? My name is Radu Dan Irini. I'm a PhD student at Babeș-Bolyai University, and unlike most diversity studies, which focus exclusively on top teams from Western countries, we are showing for the first time whether employees from Romania perceive diversity management to be significant and whether this perception is positively related with individual performance. Previously, you heard me mention diversity management, and now you're probably thinking, how many types of management are there? I don't blame you. However, personally, I find this concept to be truly remarkable, especially in today's globalized world. Because in essence, diversity management means all the actions taken by an organization to create a safe and an inspiring workplace where everybody, no matter their appearance, no matter their background, their education, everybody feels valued, cherished, and embraced. Henceforth, to find the answers for my investigation, I conducted a multifaceted survey in which 414 employees brought valuable contributions. And the results were significant, both in terms of theory and practice, because it has been proven that employee perception of diversity management is positively and significantly related with individual performance, and not only with individual performance, but also with job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and innovative capabilities. Overall, 71% of survey respondents are what I like to classify as diversity optimists, clearly showing attitudes of support for diversity management initiatives. To sum up, organizations from Eastern Europe, and specifically Romania, should consider investing more in diversity management initiatives because clearly their employees care and they do pay attention to how diversity is managed. And all in all, investing in diversity management initiatives is not just a good thing to do in terms of legal or ethical reasoning. As this study shows, it also makes great business sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radu. Please have a seat. Yes, and I would ask you for another applause for all of them. Great. Perfect. Now we have to give some time for the jury to decide who the winner will be. But in the meanwhile, I would really like to ask you if you have questions or comments or what you liked better or not liked. So the floor is yours now. No questions? No curiosities? There is a question. Great. Do we have a microphone? Yeah, there, Robert.
I was very interested about the Ostraka. I studied Hebrew and Aramaic way back. Just tell me something about the specific location and the specific place where you find the documents and the Ostraka and things like that.
So actually, it's a complex question because, like, the Persian Empire is really wide. It goes until the start of the Greek island, also in Egypt, until the beginning of Indus, what they call Indus, so it's really wide. We have lots of information about the center of the empire, thanks to Persepolis, because we found lots of tablets on really different languages, Elamite, Aramaic, and it's really about the administration and how it was working, because it's not supposed to be, like these inscriptions are not for the public. It's like really data from the economics and everything like that. So now we found like different little corpus from another place, Bactrian, but also next to the east of the Mediterranean. So this is where I'm working. So the empire was, to be really brief, like was cut into what we call satrapy. So in our country, we have like region, province, things like that. So they were cutting the empire in satrapy, and then inside the satrapy, they were cutting again, but we don't know exactly how. So we have also province, region, things like that. So I'm working on one big satrapy called Transeuphratia, and nowadays it will correspond to Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, a bit of Jordan. And so there, what is complicated is that lots of the ostraca, so some of them were found in archaeological excavation contests, so it's great because like we have the context and structure and things like that, but lots of them came from illegal excavation. So now, like they are in private collection. So you have to manage, and like my subject is really pluridisciplinary because I came from archaeological background, but you have to combine with historical corpus as well, epigraphy, like really the inscription, and now with digital analyze, digital humanities, to be able like to start to reconstruct something and like not only tell a story, understand this whole thing. So the ostraca come from majority from the Idumean region, so the south of Israel now. And I'm combining two little corpus from Egypt and Persepolis as well, so Iran, to be able to start to, like, to be able to present something at the end. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Marina. Oh, okay. And Camilo, yes. I don't know who was first.
Thank you. That was very impressive. I'm a mom, so I wanted to ask about the first presentation. Is there any difference in terms of what age do those children start the chores and the type of chores that they do versus their executive?
Absolutely. We looked at children aged between 6 and 12 years. And we were actually really surprised that the younger children, the 6 to 7 age range, were actually engaging in more chores than we expected them to, certainly better than I was doing at 6 to 7. We did, of course, find that there was a difference in age, so that 12-year-olds were doing more, of course. But young children were still doing chores like making their own bed, making themselves a snack, putting their own laundry away, and so forth, which was really impressive. In terms of getting your children to do them, we didn't look at financial incentives, but people have said from other research teams that actually doing the pocket money is the best way to encourage that. And I know there's actually been some new research that's come out that's looked at teams in Italy where they're getting something like €20 a week for adolescents, which is incredibly impressive. Yeah, so that's something that we want to look at in the future as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Camilo?
Thank you. I do not have a question, I just have a comment. I really enjoyed this format and this competition because you all do very complex research work within your disciplines, and yet we were able to understand all presentations without being experts in your fields. So I just wanted to congratulate you. I think this is very relevant, not only for competing here in a network of university, but really to communicating what we do as universities to the society. So just keep sharing this. I think these short messages will get to many people and will be easier to understand for the broader society. So thank you for engaging in this, and also for the idea of Mar and Agatha for delivering this to the ES group. I think we should continue and encourage not only the competition, but the training and sharing these messages, these presentations to the broader community. So
Definitely. Thank you, Camilo, and it's all about communication, of course. Frederick, yes.
Yes, thank you, and indeed also congratulations from my side. It's a question to all of you, actually. What did you learn through this process? What will you take out of the training that you got, the possibilities that the S Group has given you? And I'll leave you 2 seconds to think about it while I was saying, I also admire the diversity that we reached with this competition. I think 4 continents are represented here. It's a very broad and interesting picture that we get to see here because of this competition.
Yes, that's it. So who wants to start? Let's start from here.
Yes, surprisingly, my thinking about this training is that you can tell the idea of your thesis in 3 minutes. I didn't think it was possible. This was the reason why I entered this training and competition, because usually when I try to explain someone what you are doing at your PhD, I speak for 10, 20 minutes and nobody understands anything, because I go into details and specific maybe context and concepts that not everybody understands. So this training helped me realize that with some help and a bit of research also, because you have to have research to have your discourse trimmed down, shortened. So I learned that it is possible to tell to any audience, educated, not educated, what you are doing, what you are working at. So this was my feedback. Thank you.
Nitesh?
Yeah, I will add more into Radhadan's point. So when we started it, the training session, and we were told that, okay, tell it to someone who is not in your field. And I used to think, okay, it's my PhD, I'm doing a lot of work, I know everything about it, I can make anyone understand that. But then, during the training, when I had to explain my thing to a PhD who was doing PhD in banking sector, and I'm doing flash floods, and I was just froze, like, what do I tell her? She doesn't understand my terminologies. So it was difficult, but in the end, like Radhadan said, it is possible. Yes.
Michka?
Yeah, it is super challenging, like, to explain your PhD in 3 minutes. Also to do this in English when it's not like your own language, because like from my side, like I really love to share. I teach at the university, so it's like easy for me to speak in French, because also I have time, and in French it's more easy. So to think, okay, I have to explain this in English, I have to be like comprehensible, I have to use like, to be synthetic, but also to use the good word, so everybody can understand, like child or someone, a grown-up, not specialized people. And what I loved about that, it's not only like perform, because to perform is super nice for me. I love to perform, like, and to share. It's also like what we did before, like the training is super nice, because like you arrive, you don't have your text at the beginning, and you are talking in different little group with other PhD students, and like you have the point of view at the end about what you were saying, and like I don't know, it helps you also for your own subject, because like you start to see really differently your work, and yeah, thanks to this other perspective of other discipline. So this was super great, yeah.
Right. Jana?
For me, because I work with children, it's so important for me to be able to talk to parents and educators. But sometimes when you come out from just having done a journal, it's so hard to sort of tailor your language back to actually make your results interpretable for other people. So this training and this competition was just really great at getting people to understand what my research is, and targeting different audiences, and realising that you do have to tailor that so that everybody can access it and understand it. But also the training with Rick was absolutely fantastic as well, and I really just highly recommend people do that because it was fantastic to jump into the groups and meet people in advance too.
Thank you. Diana.
I agree with everything else they said, but I think for one, I gained confidence in my topic and its relevance. I saw it differently because I asked myself questions that I didn't think of previously. In my first speech that I submitted, I tried to appeal to a European audience, and I gave that example from the European Court of Justice, rather human rights. And I thought that's, just to get that hook and get everybody interested. But I found out people should be interested because what I'm doing is interesting. Yes, it is the judiciary. It's the most ignored part of government. But I guess you learn to communicate aspects. If you're passionate about them, I think it's easy to transfer the passion to others. You just have to trust the process. And like today, I was totally unscripted, and I find maybe that's the confidence and thinking about your work more and thinking about it just broadly. No matter how you go, chances are, at least it teaches you structure, so I tried that. And yeah, just to appreciate your work, which I think sometimes we don't do, we take it for granted.
Thank you. Really interesting. Yes, please, an applause. Interesting learnings here. I'm also learning, by the way. So, any other comment or question? The jury is not coming, so we will have to talk about something.
I would like to add something.
Yeah.
As related to your question, I would like really to recommend you, or maybe remind you, because most of you are researchers, to not be ashamed to do exactly what we did. We gathered from different fields, and not be ashamed if you are working on an article, on a research, ask somebody from a different field on their perspective, because as Michka put it perfectly in words, you go back a bit and you reflect. And those different ideas might help you be even better at your work, actually.
Yeah, and it's really amusing to see people are doing PhDs in so many topics that you don't even think about. It's a really treat.
Thank you. And the jury is back. Good news. By the way, does the jury have any general comment? Or yes, of course, Arnim, please.
So I think in one word, wow. That was very impressive. Without a script, performing up on stage, we were very impressed. And of course, you saw from the time we took that you all were so excellent. It was really a tough decision to choose one of you. We did. I don't tell the name. But we wanted to ask you a question. And maybe you could briefly say, and this relates to the training, because we had the impression that it might have helped, it might have clarified some things. And we would like to know, and I'm sure the audience does too, just how was the training? Was it useful? Was it useful to do it before the competition? Because that is the different thing that we do. Because normally in 3MT, and then the winner gets a training afterwards. We thought you get the training first and then make most of it, and maybe be encouraged to continue with that. So whoever wants to start, this is our question.
Actually, a little bit they already told us why you were not here.
Okay.
That they appreciated it, but still.
But I can add a bit. If you do training after the competition, then only one person gets the training. But if you do it in the starting, a lot of PhDs got this training, which not just 5 of us, but they can use that skill or training to other reasons when they have to explain in some party or some conference to other people, they know how to tell their PhD in simpler ways. So I think it's good that it happened before because it reached more
We take
people.
this as encouragement to continue.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, we also get to meet each other, even the ones that didn't make it here. So it's still, I see it as part of the networking and building up that momentum to this day. And for us who made it to this far, we still keep remembering what Rick said or what we learned and how to. Some of us maybe are natural performers, like she said, but it's to learn to transfer those scientific complex details into 3 minutes. That's what Rick gives and what the competition brings.
And I feel like I was definitely using what Rick was telling us about in terms of body language and verbal language in my speech. So I was really happy to get that training beforehand.
I would add also that the training is not only about these 3 minutes. It can help you with all your research, with being able to sit in front of an audience, with emotions, with trembling hands, but being able to sit and transmit your topic, your interest. It's something really interesting. And be also aware, not only on your words that you prepare beforehand, but trying to be more aware of your voice, of the breaks you make when you want to make a point, of your body language. So really, I recommend, please let it not be the only edition and continue this tradition because it's super valuable.
Perfect. Yes, we will continue.
I totally agree with all of that. And it's not only the contest, it's like really the process and like what we did to be able, like we share a lot during this training, and we were saying like it was really interesting to have all this perspective and different point of view. Like really we grew up and our own subject grew up thanks to this training. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you are the first, all that did the training are the first alumni cohort of our S-Group PhD training. So we are very happy that there's some community building going on. And of course, as I said before, we wanted to give you the opportunity not only to perform, but also to network, right? To network with us and hopefully further inspire us and be inspired by what has been said today. And I mean, you're all winners for us anyway. And with this, I would hand back over to Agatha and stay at the sidelines.
Okay. Actually, now we are almost there. We will decide who the winner is. But I remind you, as Mar already told you, actually they are all winners. They have all their grants, so they will receive 1,000 euros to do some research abroad. So please take advantage. And I would now invite the rector of the University of Minho, Professor Vieira de Castro, because he will hand over the certificates. Maybe you could all stand up, what do you think? And come to the front of the stage. Great.
Congratulations. Thank you. Obrigado.
Do we have...
Obrigado.
Great, they know Portuguese words. Do we have the certificate?
Can we have the other jury members?
Sure, please, also the jury members. Why not?
There were more jury members, but not everybody could be here. It was
So, I think certifications coming from here. Do we announce the winner first, or do we?
Certificates now.
Okay. This is the winner?
The winner.
Okay, so we will first hand in the certificate to the winner.
And the winner is?
And the winner is?
Mitschka.
Thank you very much.
Mitschka. Mitschka, Mitschka, Mitschka.
Okay,
Don't go away.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just for you and everyone to know, the order of the handover is no ranking.
No, no.
Right? You just choose one person, and everybody else was so close.
It's a nice information.
And Diana, yours.
Sorry, jet lag.
Okay. Well, and finally, Diana. Thank you so much, and congratulations. Okay. The certificate and the gift. Okay.
Thank you. Great.
Applause for Diana.
And I think we are already in the right position for the group photo, right?
Yes.
So just no. Okay. I thought.
Like that, no.
Yeah.
Professor, a little bit to the left, please. Move a little bit to the left, please. Geometry, yes, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And congratulations. And yes, we promise that this is not the only edition, right? We will do it again.
And we'll do it.
Yes.
Sure.
Good.
So somehow we managed to get back into time, so that we have our lunch break now. And I'm looking forward to continue our conversations. Thank you all very much, and this was really great. Thanks.